Today, man, we have the craziest thing that I've seen in a minute. I don't know about the craziest thing I've seen in a minute, but it's a really interesting thing that I got to dive into. And I think it gets into this realm, and you know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about wrestling action figures in general, but just really action figure collecting in general. But I feel like it does stick to wrestling, and we'll kind of dive into it, man. But yesterday, you guys know I have my desk, right? I'm at my desk. Things come across my desk. People pop in. They give me something across my desk, and I'm like, you know what, Brad? We got to cover this. We got to talk about this. And today, we're going to be discussing this, man. And we are looking at the Figures Toy Company Ultimate Wrestling Fans box sets figures right here, man. Lots to unpack with these. You guys know, do have an arena of some kind. You know, people have their different avenues. They're running their different pick feds. Some people just have a regular display set up with detolfs and whatever. Some people are playing and they're actively, you know, doing their own storylines and their own feds and stuff like that. You have your stop motion or pick fed community that have their own feds and arenas and crazy shows and different stuff like that. Some people are making videos and content about their stuff. You have people that are completely unknown, just doing their own things in the shadows and don't have anything to do with it. But at the same time, today, we're getting into this deal here, and I talk about this deal here because a lot of people have an arena set up in their collection. I have my own arena, you know, things like that. But today, we're covering the Figure Toy Company's Ultimate Wrestling Fan figures that were revealed. I think it was yesterday, and I think these are just very interesting, man. They have 4 or 5 different series. We're going to go over the price. We're going to go over what my thoughts are on these because I think it's very interesting and, you know, why I think it works versus why it doesn't work and just kind of break down the entire deal here, man. But we have these little vignettes that I'm going to play as well in the background so you guys can kind of see what we're looking at here. But just overall, you know, I have a lot of questions myself because I'm thinking, you know, what do you think about Ultimate Wrestling fans or action figures of fans getting their own figures? I think, you know, let's just start from the top. These figures are very interesting. I think that, you know, there's some good about them, there's some bad about them, and I guess we're just going to just digest the entire thing and tell you what I think here. But starting off the top, I think that concept-wise, on paper, I think it's a pretty cool idea. I think that there is a market for it in terms of figure photographers and things like that, which is where I was trying to go with, you know, people have their different arenas, their different avenues of collecting and things like that. Some people just display and whatever, and some people actually do the figure photography, right? We see figure photography in all of my reviews. I've done figure photography for, I think, right at about a decade now or something like that, I think is when I started. You know, it's kind of like off and on, right? But I think that it kind of comes with the territory. It comes with a job. It comes with, you know, running a wrestling action figure channel. You're constantly taking photos of the figures and things like that. But I think this is interesting because, you know, there's a lot of good here. I think that there's a cool concept here that you could, but I think, like, my biggest thing, like, the first thing I think of when I see these figures is they look like some sort of, like, random Adult Swim cartoon show or something like that, like an adult cartoon show. They remind me a lot of, like, Venture Bros or something is what, like, kind of the vibes that I'm getting here, or some sort of, I don't even know, but they definitely look cartoony. To me, that's the first thing. When I saw them initially, I was like, dang, these are cool, but they look very cartoony. They have a very cartoony look. The color blocking, the color scheme, the saturation, the really high impact color palette that they have is not really realistic. It's more of a cartoon look, and I think that these could work in certain, you know, in certain contexts, but I also feel like a lot of them have really over the top eyes. Like, they have really, really dramatic expressions and stuff like that. If you guys look at their eyes, a lot of them are scared or shocked or reacting, you know, angry or just like all kinds of crazy stuff going on with these, which again, I think that in the right avenue, these could work, you know, but I feel like it probably wouldn't work in some certain contexts, which is what we're going to get into here. But if you look at the videos, I just don't feel like they really match up with the wrestling figures that we're seeing here from Mattel or AEW or whatever. I feel like they're so cartoony that they can't connect together, if that makes sense. It looks like they can't be a part of the same universe, which is a whole deal there. But I will say the figures look to be very highly articulated. Like, look how, I bet all of these figures, of course I don't have them in my hands or anything like that. I might buy a set just to review and talk about, but I think that they look like they're very user-friendly. They look like a figure I would enjoy. They look like something that'd be highly articulated. I mean, I see double-jointed knees, double-jointed arms. I'm seeing thigh cut. I see a bunch of really cool things here that could work in terms of just a figure to pose around, you know, have a stunt granny in the crowd or something like that. I just think that they're a bit cartoony for that aspect. And also, man, one thing that we also have to talk about is the price point. So I think each of these figures individually are $21.99, so you're looking at like the price of an Elite figure or an AEW wrestling action figure, something like that, about $10 less than an Ultimate or something like that. But they also have these 4-packs, so you can buy a full series. So they have 5 series, I think, and they do include 4 figures, and those are $79.99 for a 4-pack, which is pretty steep. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty steep price point at this juncture, you know what I mean? You do get the 4 characters, you can kind of select your own there, and even if you were to buy all 5 packs, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have that multiplied by 4, you'd have 20 crowd members, but you're looking at, dude, I mean, what is it, $400 or something like that, which is kind of crazy. I mean, that's pretty steep. Not gonna lie to you, that's pretty steep, and I understand it, but I don't know. I don't know how well this works for me. I think that there's some good to it, and you compare it again with maybe some comic book characters, and you can see in these little vignettes that they're pairing it with Superman, they're putting it with these different, figures and stuff like that. I just don't think you have a lot of cohesion between them, and that's kind of where it loses me. But again, I do think the figures look like they're gonna move well. I think that they are cool on paper, things like that, but I feel like you're better off taking your extra figures, your basics, your figures that are really old, or hell, even your Jacks potentially. I know they're a bit oversized, but I've seen people make it work. Or taking figures that maybe you get on super clearance from your dirt cheap stores or your Rosses or whatever, and kind of makeshifting those. And, your TJ Maxxes of the world, like we've talked about this forever, right? You find figures on clearance at Walmart, etc., and then you put those in your arena with some wrestling figure accessories, maybe some extra shirts you're not using, some custom shirts maybe that you've bought, something like that, and you compile them together and you create your own crowd. And that is what I think is probably the best avenue for making a crowd, because not only are you going to not break the bank as much, at least I don't think so. I mean, you add it up over time, yeah, you probably would, and everything like that. But once you've been collecting for a long time, man, I feel like if you're buying figures consistently, you end up with a decent amount of figures that are like extras or whatever. But I guess if you're doing, fixing up figures and doing surgeries and customizing a lot, like I have over the past decade plus of collecting Mattel WWE for really hardcore, I guess you could say, that's gonna tend to happen. But I've seen a lot of collectors do this, where they take those extra parts and kind of like kit bash them together, and then you have a random crowd member, because it doesn't look like the original character anymore, because you've been kit bashing so much that you end up with all these different figures in the crowd that kind of align. And the thing is they look like the characters in your universe. They look like they're cohesive because they're the same manufacturer, they're the same maker, and they look like fans of WWE because they have the shirts, because you're comparing them with WWE action figures to begin with, right? So I feel like that works much better. But I think at the same time, again, they are cool figures. I think that they are cool. They're just a little bit goofy, and one thing that I thought was hilarious is if you look right here in the Ultimate Wrestling Fans Series number 2, look at this guy right here, man. He's got the handlebar mustache. He has the mullet going on. He has a pink hoodie, and you'll see on the packaging, that is a Brad figure. That is a Brad figure. I feel like if I don't buy any of them, I gotta have Brad. I gotta buy the Brad figure. So most definitely buying the Brad figure. But if you go through here, you got Karen and Hunter and Amber and Stu. I think it's so funny that they actually named them too. But the Brad figure is a must buy. I might actually buy that today. I gotta go over there and make that purchase. But don't think there's a Trey figure. No, there's a Eugene, which is interesting. You got a Marvin, a Lance, a Sean. But I think it's very interesting, It's very, very interesting. I think also it could be cool, you buy some decals or something like that. You put them on the shirts and stuff like that. You could really make them into your own, or maybe put some custom shirts, or take some of your Mattel WWE figure shirts or AEW Jazzwares. You put them on your fans, and then bam, you have some more stuff to play with there. It kind of hides the illusion and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, I think that maybe if these were cheaper too, it would also add into it. I mean, $21.99 for a good articulated action figure is not bad. At the same time, I feel like that's pretty on par for the market. I just don't know if people, I mean, I don't know. I guess you can let me know. You can let me know if it's overshot or whatever. Maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, Brad. But I think at the same time, again, I do like a lot of aspects of this. I just don't know how well it's going to work out, I guess you could say. I think that there's some good here. And maybe if you repainted the head sculpts or something like that, or like changed some of the color blocking or something like that, you could make some of them work. I think it's like the eyes that kind of throw you off more, and then again like the color blocking, like super super saturated colors and stuff like that kind of fit in with more of a cartoon or a comic book or stuff like that. It really gives me like TMNT comic or cartoon vibes. I feel like they could really fit into that line if you wanted to do a street scene or something like that. Maybe that's just what it really reminds me of the hardest is in terms of action figures, because you know, like Mattel and WWE is a lot more realistic depending on the Marvel Legends that you're doing. If you did like some classic comic book designs, you could probably fit them in there. I'm just kind of spitballing and throwing it all around there, but I think it's funny. Like, some of these character models are hilarious. I think some of them are so funny and just really like fun. They really are. They're really funny and they make the whole thing fun. But I don't know. I think it's a very interesting detail, and I wanted to take you guys through it, see what your guys' opinions were on all of these super Ultimate Wrestling fans. They also have these accessory packs, which is very cool, and it comes with, you know, the popcorn and the cups, and you have these foam fingers. And I do love the creative aspect of this and seeing what people can come up with and like funny videos and some fun things that you can do with these figures, of course, and different figure photography and things like that. And again, the accessory pack is really cool. You guys know I really enjoy accessory packs. I might order the accessory pack. I could see exactly what, you know, this is about and see what I feel like I gotta review it though, right? You gotta review the Brad figure. You gotta review maybe one of these Ultimate fan sets and see what it's all about with these, just to see what they're all about again. And Figuarts Toy Company, I've never ordered any of their other guys like the security guards or the referees or anything. I've read reviews and stuff like that, and some people, you know, I've seen people destroy those figures before saying they're not any good whatsoever. You know, I know that they have made their attempt at, you know, different wrestling figures before. I'm pretty sure the ones, I think I have a Kevin Steen one, they're kind of like Jaxie looking, and I know those figures have a pretty bad reputation when it comes to, you know, just overall fundamental action figures. Like, they're really loose, they fall apart out of the packaging, etc. So I don't know, maybe they've improved, we'll have to see. But I thought this is a very interesting deal. I wanted to touch on it. I wanted to talk about it. I want to know what you guys think of all of this down in the comment section below. And are you going to buy these? Are you going to be buying these? Are you interested in these whatsoever? Are you going to look at them at least, or just even give them a chance? That would be interesting. But I think it still stands. I think they're a bit cartoony to fit in with your WWE Mattels, but maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. You could let me know what you think of that all down in the comment section below. But that is pretty much going to wrap it up for me, man. Huge shout out to our Patreon members, man. Appreciate you fellas so much. Thank you guys so very much for the continued support as always. You guys are truly a blessing to me, and I appreciate you, man. But I'm getting the hell out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a blessed one, and I'll catch you guys later.